In this video, we're going to start taking a closer look at the Java primitive types. Now, of the 8 primitive types, 2 of them are non-numeric. The others are numeric. These are not numeric. And in this video, we're going to be looking specifically at the char or character and Boolean, which is just true or false. First, we're going to be looking at the char type or character type, and it's got some interesting characteristics. And I'm going to jump over to IntelliJ now and do a quick demo of the basic features of the char primitive Java type.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the char type. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new class. I'm just going to come over to Java class new. I'm going to call it char examples. Now, you are going to find a zip file of all the source code in the course resources for this lecture. And I'm creating new classes so that you have a reference to go to. So let's go ahead and create that new main file. So PSVM, all the first letters. So I'm just going to hit enter there, and that creates up that main method. Now, if you remember, we did S out, and I'm just going to do a hello world there. Now, hello world, that text that is in green here, that is actually a string. So that is a Java string. We haven't talked about strings very much in the course, but that is actually a string value. And you cannot use that with the char type. So if we declare a char, remember, we're going to declare the type first. So that's going to be char. And I'm just going to call this my char. And some people first say character. I have a habit of saying char for these types. And here, rather than the double quotes, very important you use a single quote. And I'm just going to call that a lowercase x. So again, remember what we have going from left to right on line 4 is going to be the variable type, that is char, then the variable name, that is going to be my char, and then we're saying that it is equal. And for characters, it is very important because it can only have a single character. If I try to put in 2 there, you can see that IntelliJ is telling me right away that is wrong. Or if I come in and use double quotes, again, IntelliJ is going to tell me that is a wrong assignment. And if I try to compile this, the Java compiler would definitely be unhappy with me. So I'm just going to come back and say X like that. So very important to do the single quotes around char types. And I come down here and I'm just going to do system out and then say my char like so. And let's go ahead and run this and see the output of it. And you can see down at the bottom that I am getting an X out for the my char variable. Again, just to reiterate, on line 4, where we're doing the declaration, we are doing the variable type of char, char, assigning it to a variable named my char, and then that variable assignment for char types or character types must be in single quotes. Double quotes or more than one character are definitely not good to use with this. The Java compiler will say, no, you cannot do that. So very important things to remember when you're dealing with the char primitive.
Now, one of the things that the char or character primitive type does support is something called Unicode. Now, Unicode is a very important standard. We're going to take a little closer look at that. What happened, if you think about computers down at the bottom, the very, very, very basics of what's happening there is you have bits and bytes. So you have 8 bits to a byte, and a bit is just a binary indicator. It's on or off. And then 8 of those make up a byte. Now that byte can represent a number of different things. And what happened way back when, going back in computer history, is different character sets started to be established. So obviously I speak English and deal with the English character set quite frequently. And as things evolved, if you look at other character sets such as Chinese, for example, I've got old eyes, so I look at the Chinese characters. I have no idea how you guys read that because they're so intricate. But you look at those character sets and you look at the different languages, that started expanding out the capability. So what was happening is you started getting different character sets that had the same binary meaning, and that did not bode very well for the computer industry. And that's really kind of what led to what Unicode is. So we are going to go over, I'm going to show you a slide deck now of and explore more about what Unicode is and how that relates to the Java programming language.
So let's take a little closer look at what is Unicode. Unicode is a character encoding standard. So this is important to understand. The character encoding is really a mapping of binary values to human readable values. So we're going to take a binary value and map that over to a character, basically. So for example, you can see I've got 3 examples on the screen there of binary representation. Remember, 8 bits. Bits are going to be 1 or 0, so 8 of them altogether is going to be a byte. And this is the representation of a byte for the letters A, B, and C. So these are basically the character encodings that we're talking about, of how these values get mapped over to a character that we see on the screen or in some type of text value, or that's output to the log. That is what is converting that. Now, Unicode, there's a lot of different encoding standards out there. There's dozens, if not hundreds. But Unicode is probably the most widely accepted and widely used for these different character encoding standards. Now, it started off with 3 main goals. So the Unicode name is supposed to be for it being universal, addressing the needs of all the different world languages. So we've been looking at Latin languages such as English, where obviously I'm using English characters on the screen right now. But if we're talking about Chinese characters or Japanese characters or some of the Middle Eastern characters, quite different from what we see right now. So we're trying to address all the world languages, all the characters that are being used around the world within Unicode. And then also uniform, fixed with codes for efficient access, so that we're using 16-bit or 32-bit, whatnot. And then also unique, so that the bit sequence only has one interpretation to a character code. So that was the underlying goals of developing Unicode. Now, it started in 1988 to create a 16-bit database of character codes. And that 16-bit space provided room for over 60,000 characters. Now, in 1991, the first Unicode standard was published. And this is important because the development of Java also started in 1991, where 1.0 of Java was released in 1996. Coincidentally, Unicode 2.0 was also released in 1996, and that 2.0 release expanded the specification beyond the 16 bits. So Java was already down the path of being developed and getting out there, and then we expanded this out to 16 bits. Important to remember that the 16-bit Unicode is called basic, and then the 32-bit is called supplementary. Now for Java, what's important about Java, the primitive char, or character, supports the 16-bit Unicode, the basic set of Unicode characters. This was really done to prevent breaking changes, so people are already starting to use Java as Unicode was becoming more and more important. So the primitive char is going to support the basic. However, as Java releases came out, the reference type that supplements char, the corresponding reference type character, will provide the 32-bit support for Unicode.
So what I want to do now is jump over into IntelliJ and show you how we can use the Unicode support for the Java primitive of char. And what we'll do is I'm going to show you on Wikipedia a chart of Unicode characters and how we can interpret those into basically using the Unicode functionality with the character type inside of the Java primitive. So I'm going to jump over to IntelliJ now and show you exactly how to do this.
Okay, to output Unicode characters, what we want to do is we're going to declare a new character variable, and I'm going to call this my Unicode, like so. I'm going to say equals, and we'll do an empty set of single quotes. Remember, single quotes are very important. And the way we specify Unicode characters, we are going to do /u. So this is going to be the slash above your enter key. And what we need to do is give it the Unicode code. So you might be wondering what that Unicode is. So let me jump over to Chrome and show you exactly how to look that up. Now, here on Chrome, I just did a search for Unicode. I'm at the Wikipedia page for Unicode, and you can read probably far more than you want to know about Unicode on this article. But what's important here is there's a nice reference. There's actually a number of different references. This is probably one of the more convenient ones for Unicode. And if you want to explore what's inside of Unicode, you can do so here. You can see here I have the basic types up on the left-hand side, and then all the supplementary characters that have evolved over time since back in 1996 when this was originally published. So if I come in here and click on this one, I'm just going to click on this range here. So that is a hexadecimal range. I'm going to click on that. And now we can see the reference. So you can see here, let me come up here. So you can see this is controls in basic Latin. And let's say I want to use the character A. And what's going to happen is I'm going to come down here to U plus, and that's going to say 004X. And that X position for that X, if we go across this 0 through F, is going to be the X value. So if I want to get an A output, I'm going to do 004 and then the number 1. So what we want to use is U0041 to represent a letter A. So let's jump over here. I'm going to come back to IntelliJ. And remember that it was 0041. So I'm going to do 004, the number 1. And let's come up here. I'm going to do another system out. And I'm going to say my Unicode, like so. I'm going to go ahead and run this now. And we can see in the output I'm getting the letter A. So let's come back over to Chrome. And let's say that I want to get a lowercase a. So that's 006X. That is going to be 1. So if I change that to a 6 here and run that, I should get a lowercase a. And you can see there in the output that I am getting a lowercase a. Come back over to Chrome. And actually, let's pick on this 00C value, this A with the squiggly over it. And I apologize, I do not know what that is called. So let's grab that one. That is going to be 00C and 1. So let's got to get that output. So it's going to change to C and still number 1. And let's go ahead and run that. And now we can see that I'm getting that A with the tick mark on top of it, showing that extended character support. Let me come back over to Chrome one more time. And if you scroll through this, you can see that there's a number of characters that are available. And this is all in that basic set. You can see a number of different symbols and characters are available. And I'll let you go ahead and explore that on your own. Let me come back over to IntelliJ. And just to reiterate, when you are dealing with Unicode characters, you want that //u. That's going to indicate to Java that you are dealing with a Unicode character. And then these characters behind that, there needs to be a valid Unicode code for that character code. And you can get whatever code you need out of how I showed you how to reference those reference tables there.
Now, the last thing I want to look at in this video is the Boolean data type. And this is a primitive type, and also there's a corresponding reference type to that. A lot of times you're going to be using this for conditional logic. At this point, I'm just going to demonstrate creating that variable and getting the output. We are going to get into conditional logic coming up in the course. I'm not going to address that at this point in time, but we will be getting to that. The Boolean data type is very important for making conditional logic, where you want to do if this condition, do this, but we will be looking at that in a future video inside this course.
Okay, let's take a look at declaring Boolean values. So the data type is going to be just Boolean. And when you are using variables dealing with Boolean, a lot of time you want to pose the variable name in a question. So let's say is weekday. In this case for me it is false. So I'm just going to do false like so. So I am working on the weekend to record some content for you guys. And then what I can do here is I can do system out. And here I can say is weekday. And I'm doing a space here. And I'm going to do something called concatenation. I'm going to append the is weekday value to that. And we can see IntelliJ is giving me a little warning here saying that it's always false, which of course I know because I'm setting it to false and not changing it anywhere. So we will go ahead and run this just to see the output. And here you can see that it is weekday false. And we can also do another one, like you want to do Boolean, and let's say is sunny. And in this case, for me, it is true because it is a very sunny day outside. So now I can do system out. And remember, we want to pose that in a question. And one quick trick here is I'm doing a trailing space so that it looks okay on the screen. And then I'll just do a plus and say is sunny. And we'll go ahead and run that, and we'll see the console output for that. So just in summary, the main thing with Booleans, it's a good programming habit to declare those variables in the type of a question, because as you're coding, when we start getting into conditional logic, that is going to make more sense in your mind as you're thinking, oh, I'm going to say, is weekday, I want to do this. If it is not a weekday, I want to do that. So that helps you think through as you're developing your programming logic to have these variables in the form of a question.